Are you ready to give car payments a little siesta? Well, then you might be getting into a Ford Fiesta. Hola! This 2013 Ford Fiesta with 175,000 miles is muy caliente. And I say that because we're sitting out under the hot summer sun. But we're talking about this beautiful, small, entry-level car that could be on a bunch of different shoppers' lists if they are looking for an affordable commuter car. Well, maybe not the flashiest car you've ever seen. This Rojo Fiesta is fuego. Today, we are going to take a walk around the outside. We're going to talk about the common problems, and then we are going to decide if the Ford Fiesta is a buy or a bust. Starting up front on our Fiesta, and what do you think of the style on these? They definitely look like a Ford. This is common styling for all their cars. I'm not sure it translates super well to the smaller car here in the Fiesta, but they're okay. They're a small car and they look like it. They do have some rust issues that you got to look out for underneath, especially the rocker panels and rear wheel wells. So if you're up in the rust areas of the country, definitely get under and check it out. This car is pretty clean rust-wise. One of the things I did notice is any of the weather stripping, things like that, has definitely showing some age. It's dried out. It's looking a little bit of rough. The sun definitely did some damage on it there, as well as the headlights are oxidized, but those will clean up pretty easily. Under the hood of our Fiesta here, we got a little four-cylinder, a 1.6 liter that makes 120 horsepower and 112 pound-feet of torque. And honestly, for a car this size, for many years, there were cars that didn't make power numbers in the triple digits. So that should actually be enough for this car. It's not going to be fast. We'll talk about it more on the test drive, but that's pretty much run-of-the-mill numbers for a car this size. Now let's talk about the common problems, what you should look out for if you are going to test drive one of these or be interested in buying one. To start off, I will tell you that this is actually a really solid engine. I'm not going to have a ton of things that are major catastrophic problems, but it does have a few little things that you should look out for, and it's really mostly just fluid related. Check the valve cover up on top of the engine, make sure that there is not a bunch of oil pooling around there or anything like that. Make sure it doesn't smell too oily, because the valve covers will leak, not an expensive fix. The other is the oil pan gasket. That's a little bit more in depth, a little bit more difficult to replace, and a little more labor intensive if you're taking it to a mechanic. So just make sure that you don't have any puddles of oil down underneath the car. The next fluid is your coolant in the tank over here. Make sure it's topped up, not leaking, anything like that. The thermostat housing is known to go bad on these and cause some coolant leaks. However, that is not a super expensive fix. I wouldn't really be that concerned about it. You just don't want it to run out of coolant or oil, because those will cause you major issues. So make sure that your fluids are kept topped up. Now, if you have a check engine light popping up, a lot of the times it is from your PCV valve. Not so much the valve itself, but the actual hoses will go bad. Again, this is not an expensive fix or a difficult fix. Not that concerning to me, but it is one of the more common check engine light problems, and along with any other evap problems, which are typical on just about any car manufacturer. Other things you might notice is if the car is running a little rough, if you got a flashing check engine, coil packs do tend to go bad on these. I would place all four at one time. They're not expensive and not difficult to do. The other thing that can cause you some problems, but is not expensive to fix, is the throttle body. You might have a check engine light for it, might have some real rough running conditions, something like that, but the throttle body is not a huge deal to replace. The last thing is not mechanical at all, but it is the actual mounts for the motor mounts. If you notice that when you shift or anything like that and it clunks, or you notice the engine rocking inside the engine bay here, probably have some bad motor mounts. They're famous for going bad right around 100,000 miles. Not an expensive fix either. Now this engine, and this is a very important part of this video, is mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. Now, if you watch any of my other videos or done any research, you know that Ford had a bunch of problems with automatic transmissions in their cars, especially back in these generations. That is not the case with the manual transmission. With those, the only real thing to check out is that the clutch engages, disengages, there's no crazy noise, anything like that, and that it just grabs well. To make sure that you don't have any excessive clutch wear, but honestly, these transmissions are pretty solid. Make sure they shift through the gears smoothly and then there's no grinding, and you should be good to go for the long haul. Moving on to the interior of our Fiesta here, and I will tell you right off the bat, first glance, this thing looks in remarkably good shape for having nearly 175,000 miles on it. It is held up very well. There is some common wear spots on these. I don't have many of it on this particular car, but I still want to tell you about them in case you're looking at a used one. Number one thing is probably actually these door handles on the door panel. These guys right here, the grab bars, will rip off. It is actually part of the door panel, and you pretty much have to replace the door panel, except for it happens often enough that there is some aftermarket fix pieces you can put out there that will put some screws through and fix it up. So that's definitely the route I would go on a cheaper car like this. So there is a solution for that. Other things I noticed on this car actually is the rubber for the shift knob is gone, and it makes it a little bit rough on your hands. Not too bad, but it is something I noticed as far as wear and tear. The seats have actually held up remarkably well as well. And then as far as electronics, things like that, there's a few things. The HVAC blend doors, I say this on just about every car, but these are actually like famous for it. The HVAC blend doors going bad. So if you're looking at a used one, switch between all the modes for your air conditioning and heat and make sure that they all switch properly and you don't have any crazy clicking or anything like that in your dash. Other electronics to look out for is the door locks, latches, whatever you want to say, will kind of get gummed up and stop working over time. So that's something to look out for. And then the radio itself will just fail. It's been a Ford problem for a long time. These are no different. If you don't have any sound or anything like that coming out, you pretty much have to replace the radio. Overall, while it is definitely not luxurious at all, there's a lot of cheap plastic, but the dash itself actually is a cheap soft material. It doesn't feel great, but it's maybe better than hard plastic. I gotta say that I think Ford did a really good job in here, and they wear pretty well as long as you take care of them a little bit, and I think this car has been taken care of. In the second row here of our Fiesta, and I'll tell you, there's good and bad here. You can probably see some of the bad, and that is that I have almost no leg room. It's okay. Headroom is okay, actually. This seat is where I would sit at 5'9" up front, so you would not want to be any taller than me and sitting back here. The seat itself, it's actually surprisingly comfortable. It doesn't feel huge, but it's soft, kind of works. I don't know. I could actually sit back here pretty comfortably for a while, but it is not made for adults. This is an area for kids, or mostly just for someone who's going to daily drive this thing and just have themselves inside the car. As far as features, there's just about nothing. It is as basic as I have ever really been in the back seat of a car. There is one cup holder that you can kind of share with the front passengers and a 12-volt outlet. So, I don't know, it's almost a Cadillac. Now to the trunk, and I gotta tell you that this has too much space for this car. They should have added a little bit more space to the rear seat area rather than having such a deep cavernous trunk. It would actually probably be just as comfortable to ride in the trunk as it would be to be a rear larger passenger. So, yeah, you can bring anything along that you would need. Pulling out now on the road in our Fiesta. And we are in second gear now. We usually do a pull right about now, and I think we're halfway through it. It is, it's slow. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Slow is what I would call it. You're gonna wanna keep the RPMs up on this one if you're trying to merge into traffic. But honestly, I'm kind of joking around because I knew this was going to be slow. We've actually rebuilt a couple of these sort of off the channel, some wrecked ones. So I'm kind of familiar with these cars. As far as the number one concern with these cars, it would be probably fuel mileage. So let's talk about those numbers. These are rated at 29 miles to the gallon in the city, 39 miles per gallon out on the highway. Really solid numbers. Other things you want to look for as far as suspension, things like that on these are pretty solid actually, but the number one thing I would say is wheel bearings. Ford, kind of like GM, doesn't really make great wheel bearings. and anything under the suspension at 150,000 miles, you're probably gonna have to replace. Now, if I was test driving one of these, I would make sure that it gets up to temp, holds temp well. Obviously, we talked about the leaks and things to look for under the hood, and then I would take it for a nice drive and make sure that the clutch feels good. The other thing, and we mentioned it under the hood as well, is just motor mounts. Just make sure that you don't have any crazy clunks when you shift, or especially grinding in gears, because that would actually indicate something wrong with the transmission itself. Otherwise, as far as a little car to drive around, they're actually kind of okay. No, they're not fast, but they serve their purpose. Back from the test drive, and now it's time to decide if the Fiesta is a va or a no va. And for my non-Spanish speaking folks, that means buy or a bust. The market on these cars is somewhere probably $4,000 or $5,000. Private party, you're gonna spend a couple thousand more than that if you pick them up off of a dealer lot for a nice one. But I do think that these cars can give you a lot of value. They, as we talked about, are pretty reliable with the manual transmission. Now remember, I might have a different answer if this was an automatic. These cars really don't have that much to go wrong other than just common cheap problems, and parts are so inexpensive for them. Most of the maintenance concerns that I have really aren't that much of a concern. The biggest thing is just to test drive it and make sure that the clutch feels good and grabs as it should, and you don't have it slipping or anything like that. If you do, you should be set to go for 250,000 miles out of the life of one of these cars pretty easily. That makes my decision today on the manual Fiesta pretty easy. These cars are a buy. I was pleasantly surprised with the reliability after researching on these, and Ford made a decent little car. If you have one of these and have had a bunch of problems or I missed something, I want to hear all about that in the comments down below. Put your thoughts down there. I appreciate you guys following along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.